Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Black Hills AI webinar, Otto IP for Patents and Litigation, Prosecution Analysis, and Argument Suggestions. A recording of this episode and the slides will be made available on the Black Hills AI YouTube channel, as well as the Black Hills AI website. Feel free to enter any questions using the Q&A feature in the Zoom menu. We invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and to visit our website to learn about our other webinars. And with that, I will turn things over to Tom.
All right, thanks. Hi, everybody. Tom Marlowe here. Thanks for joining us today. We'll give you the quick headshot slide here of our team before moving on with the presentation and a little bit of background for those of you unfamiliar. Black Hills AI has been around for a number of years, working in automation, workflow management, data handling, and analysis in the area of intellectual property law, particularly docketing, paralegal support, renewals management, and prosecution support as well. So today, on the topic of prosecution, we're going to take a look at some guided skills that are particularly focused around handling office actions. So the first thing that we're going to look at, and there's going to be two pieces to this. The first one is our guided skills within the Otto IP tool. There's a particularly built skill around analyzing and preparing arguments in response to an office action from an examiner. And it breaks into about four pieces, which we're going to take a look at in a second, basically parsing apart the office action and into your current claim set, a technical analysis, a legal analysis, and then argument suggestions for your preparation of a response. So let's start with that first block. And this is the parsing of the rejection in the claims. We want to see what's in there. So here we're going to take a look at a session, a workspace within Otto IP. I'm going to grab the file history for this matter that we're going to use as an example today. And we're going to start a new session based on a guided skill. So in this case, I've got this as one of my recents, but it's analyze rejection and generate proposed response. It's a patent prosecution skill. We'll go ahead and launch that. And we're going to see it is a multi-part prompted guided skill. Initially, since we're talking about the parsing, we're going to start with this prompt, but I want to attach a couple of items for context. So I'm going to attach the non-final rejection that we have here, and I'm going to attach the claims that we have here. You might notice I've grabbed the XML version of the claims and the DocX version of the non-final rejection. If you put the PDF in there, we'll OCR it. So either can work. I like the DocX version, though, for consistency. So once this first part of the analysis is run, we get a nice summary of what's going on in the claims and what's going on in the office action. So we can see we've got a 112A written description rejection. We've got a 112B indefiniteness rejection. The details of each one of these is provided. And then we've got some 101 issues that we've got to deal with as well. And it talks about how the examiner is applying these from a high level. This is summary information. Looks like there was in a previous office action, prior art-based rejection. Looks like maybe a 102 that's been withdrawn. So that's nice to see. Okay, and that gives us the breakdown. That's the parsing. This is, we might say, setting the table for the next steps in our guided skill here. So the next one is our technical and factual analysis. So we're going to pull up in our guided skill prompts, the next one, evaluation of the examiner's position. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention on that first set of prompts, you might have noticed that the first one was quite light. is the LLM instructions that are up in this little icon with this guided skill. These are pretty comprehensive. You'll see in a moment, I'm going to scroll through and you can see how much detail is included in here. This is what drives all of the prompts that we're going to be looking at through this presentation. So when I use this second prompt, it's very simple, it says implement phase 2. It's actually referring to that detailed set of instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and implement phase 2. Actually, I'm going to pause here for a second. I want to stop this because one thing I do want to make note of is this particular rejection, it doesn't have a 102 or 103 in it. But if it did, I would at this stage go to the office action, the non-final rejection here, open up the references drop down beneath it and attach the relevant references as context for the next steps going forward. Now, we don't need that here because we're dealing with 112 and 101 only. But I want to show you that that is available at your fingertips for when dealing with prior art in the examiner's rejections. Okay, so let's get back to the processing here. We're going to implement phase 2. And here we get an evaluation of the examiner's positions. So it walks through, here's the evaluation of the 112A written description arguments. Here's an evaluation of the examiner's 112B indefiniteness arguments. And again, these are used to help inform your strategy. They're also, again, precursors for the steps coming up. And the next is an evaluation of the 101 rejection from the examiner, too. Some nice detail in here. In a minute, one of the things that I really like about this analysis are the summaries at the end, which we're going to be scrolling to in just a second. Particularly these tabular views where you can easily digest what is going on, where the holes and gaps are that you might want to particularly deal with. So this gets you that that technical factual analysis and brings us to our next step, the legal analysis. So here we go back to our set of prompts for the guided skill, grab the legal sufficiency analysis. You're going to see again the prompt is quite simple, but it's referring back to those detailed LLM instructions. And we're going to take a look at now the legal sufficiency of each one of the points that the examiner is making in this rejection. So again, we start off with the 112A. In a second, this is going to slide down to our 112B. And we can see, again, the groundwork from the legal perspective that we're putting together. All of this is going to roll up in just a moment to our argument generation, our proposed argument preparation step, which is where we ultimately want to land so that we can use this as the background for the strategy, but then have some actual plan for the response that we're going to be putting together as practitioners. Okay, so we're finishing up kind of the review of the 101 rejection, and then we'll get our summary at the end. Again, I kind of like to scroll down and start with this summary and then go back up to the details as we go. Now, one thing that I particularly like about this Otto tool is although we're following a kind of a stepwise process with these prompts within the guided skill, the message box at the bottom is open at any time for uh, adjusting or adding the free text queries, additional data, based on your expert knowledge as a practitioner. So if there's analysis that you particularly like, or there's analysis that you don't particularly agree with, it's a good place to dive into those areas maybe now, and all of that becomes context for the next step, which is the argument generation. So you can go ahead and get that kind of custom querying, adding additional information, focusing the tool where you want it, so that when we get here to the argument generation, it's going to be most in line with the direction as an attorney that you want to be focused. So here we're going to execute phase 4, given all of the previous responsiveness and context that exists. And this is going to give us a nice little strategic assessment at the start, and then some options. In this case, we've got, because the examiner's positions look to be relatively strong, we've got kind of an amendment path that is the primary option that is being recommended. So then as we go down, arguments along with amendment suggestions are going to be provided. And we can see a bit of the strategy here for each of the rejection points that the examiner has provided. And then here we're getting to a nice set of paragraphs that may be good proposed argument language that I could copy out and drop right into my shell for review and editing. Or if there's language that I like, I can, and maybe want to adjust, I can ask the tool to adjust or point it in some different directions and kind of iterate while I'm here as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of options that are provided, language that can be used along the way, amendment proposals that may or may not make sense based on your judgment as a practitioner. And then you get some of this, pause here real quick. You get some of this success probabilities. This is interesting stuff. I don't know exactly how the numbers are calculated, but some of the summaries and probabilities might be useful when discussing strategy and plans forward with clients. Now I'm going to add here a custom query because I realize that although I'm getting amendment suggestions, I haven't attached the specification yet as part of the context. So I can go ahead and do that now. And I'm going to ask the tool, is there support for the amendment suggestions in view of the specification? And then I just pop back over here to the file history, scroll down until I find our spec, and attach that. Now it's attached as context, and I can run this prompt and have it analyze the amendments that it's provided now in light of whether or not there's strong support in the spec for making those amendments. And so from here, I can say, suggest new amendments based on any areas where there's concerns, or maybe I'm fine, maybe it looks good. So it's a way to kind of take things forward from here, and then any additional iteration that you want to do is available because you've got kind of the free text flexibility from here as well. Okay, so that's in a nutshell how the guided skill around office action response work operates within our Otto IP tool. We try to give a framework, but allow for the practitioner to add their expertise and make it flexible to be able to do that. Now, the next piece of the puzzle that I want to show you all is a more automated tool, and this is one that is in beta testing right now. And this is one that is more workflow oriented, and it's a office action response package that is generated uh, automatically during the processing of an office action, so during docketing. So the process here, as you can see, is we would receive docketing. We identify that there is an office action that's come in from the patent office. And then we start running through versions of the prompts that you've seen to create this package. So we're going to parse apart that office action. From there, go and grab the current claim set, grab the specification, and grab any references that are used within the office action. All of this data is used in various ways as context for the analysis, very similar to what we've seen, but done automatically behind the scenes, and then compiled into a document that's delivered typically alongside a response shell so that you can have your template shell and analysis and proposed argument language there in front of you immediately when you're ready to start working on the response. So I can show a little preview of what that document package looks like. This is a different matter from the one that we just looked at. So this one, if I remember correctly, has some 103 rejections in it along with some objections. So we'll take a look at the start of this document. You have a summary of the matter that you're dealing with. You've got a breakdown, an overview of the status of the claims and the objections that we can see here. So we can see where the claims are. We can see the rejection that we're dealing with. We've got some drawing and spec objections as well. And then we get into the substantive rejection analysis. Now, if you look in the corner, this is a relatively large document at 33 pages, but the first 4 or 5 pages are the executive summary, basically where you're going to spend your time. You'll notice hyperlinks within the document. We can see one here for office action analysis. We'll see more as we kind of scroll through here that will guide you into kind of the meat of the document to see some more of the details of the analysis if you want to go there. But from here, we get a summary of the rejection. We get a breakdown of the weaknesses in the examiner's position with respect to how references are provided. And then we've got some strategy work. So some argument recommendations broken down very succinctly with, again, links. You can see the link for the technical arguments there that drive you to, say, more detailed paragraph-wise version of the argument we'll take a look at in a second. But at the bottom part of this, we also have case law support. So one of the areas that's uh, continually a concern, particularly because of what's wound up in the news around AI use, is concerns around hallucinations with respect to citations of case law. So one way to alleviate that we use is in this tool, we have a database behind the scenes of cases where an examiner's rejection have been overturned. And this database of case law then is organized by the type of rejection that the examiner used and includes details around the legal analysis and the fact patterns so that during the analysis of the office action at hand, we can look to that case law database in a almost a more traditional search method to find a fact pattern and legal analysis that fits well with the case that you're dealing with. So in this case, let's say it's a motivation to combine issue. We can find some cases that dealt particularly with overturning an examiner's 103 rejection based on a lack of motivation to combine, and we can compare the fact patterns to find a good narrative to use as part of a citation to authority in your rejection response. So then, as we go through and kind of finish out this executive summary, we get a little bit of strategy around tone based on the strength of the examiner's argument, some action items that might be nice next steps for the practitioner to follow. And that gets you to the end of the summary section. And we'll take a quick look at some of the details. So the detail section starts off with, I think, what can be useful, a nice little client summary email that breaks down what happened in the office action, some kind of cut and paste language that you can use if you like. And then we get into the detailed analysis. So here's the specific elements from the references and whether or not they apply appropriately to the claims at hand, strengths and weaknesses of the examiner's argument. So you can see the detail of that as you're going through your analysis. Argument suggestions, so actual language that you can cut and paste. Should you like these arguments, grab them, drop them into your response shell, review and edit them, of course. And if need be, amendment suggestions as well to help get around the rejection or rejections, depending on what you're dealing with in your office action. So this is, I'm skipping around and just pulling out example pieces. You can see this is a large document. There's a lot of detail in here. If you're dealing with 102 and 103 and 101, you're going to have more detail to deal with. The executive summary is going to be a nice place to figure out where you want to focus your time. This is obviously less interactive than the Otto IP guided skill process that we took a look at just a minute ago. But should you like some of the data that's coming out of this and some of the arguments, you can grab the analysis or you could grab the document in whole and drop it into Otto and kind of iterate and prod on it from there to continue to work your analysis and work out the language that you want to use in your response. The goal here is this gives you a nice package that is all pre-built versus the Otto IP version. Similar analysis, it's just more kind of guided and interactively driven. Okay, so with that, that concludes the look at our prosecution, our office action response-based tools. If you're a customer or would like to be and want to try out particularly this document creation tool that we have in beta right now, please reach out. It's pretty easy to run a matter or two through the system and give you an analysis to work on if you'll give some feedback. Let's open up the floor to some questions.
Hi, Tom. There is one question in the chat so far, and it is, how does the system deal with situations where an office action references a figure in the prior art, and there is a question of whether the figure actually depicts what the examiner alleges?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The tools that we use have image recognition capabilities and are able to find like say figure 2 in a particular reference and be able to analyze it. The depth of understanding of the images can vary. So I think that's one that's best to try it out with a skeptical eye, like many things that you should be doing as an attorney, anyways. And it should have the capabilities, but it's going to be somewhat situational depending on the quality and what the figure actually represents. So that's my great attorney answer of it kind of depends. But it's better than the answer of there are no image capabilities. So it can, but you're going to have to take a look at that and kind of give it an additional analysis and see how the results come out.
Another question. I started late, but can you show some tips on working with imported file histories where we might not have filed the case, so it's not in Patent Center, especially when you're looking for a summary of prosecution history and want the whole file
Mm.
history and context.
Yeah, so with our Otto IP tool, we've got the connection into Patent Setter. Now, if it's publicly available, there's easier ways to get at it. But if you've, say, just taken over a case, and it is not on your customer number yet, and maybe it's not published yet, but you have the file history, then you can create a workspace and you can upload that file history in as PDFs. And the tool's got the capability to go and OCR each of the PDFs. So in this case, we'd be able to pull in the office action. We'd be able to pull in from your upload the current claims, the specification, references, particularly if you have them on hand. Again, any of this can be uploaded in addition to if we have direct access to it through Patent Center for analysis. So that should all work. The One of the things that you're asking about is kind of a summary of the prosecution history and the whole file wrapper in context. That is a tool that is actually under being worked on right now. Uh, Almost like a an assistant for an intake, right? So you're just taking over a case and you want to get a quick sense of what's going on in the case, where are we in its process. So what I would say from that respect, keep your eyes open for an upcoming webinar because once we have that tool ready, I'll do another webinar on it and we can take a look at how that process works as well.
Which LLMs are behind the system? Are you using one or many?
Yeah, we are not particular necessarily to any given one LLM. We will adjust based on ones where we like the responses that are coming out of it and the quality of um, the the responses that we're getting. Um, but there are certain requirements that we have as far as data retention. So we are only going to work with systems where we can have zero retention APIs. These types of security things are very important for the work that we do. So that limits a little bit of the tools that we'll use. I know as of recent, the Anthropic tools have been very nice and have been in our systems. But I would say it's something that ebbs and flows.
Just curious, where was the case law that we saw earlier sourced from?
Yeah, so that's a database that we keep internally, basically through monitoring the case law or monitoring opinions from either uh, the PTAB, the Federal Circuit, or higher if it gets there. and previous courts prior to that that we maintain internally. So it's all um, it's all public uh, case law data that we've analyzed internally.
Okay. Are you training the models based on publicly available PTO file histories?
We are we are not training the models per se. What we are doing is we are providing the workflow, context, and prompt language that helps get the models to kind of act the way that we want. It's maybe a simplistic way to put it.
Is the system limited to US patent matters or can you handle foreign?
The system is not limited to U.S. patent matters. In fact, I think we've got um, a webinar coming up in a few weeks where Mike on our team is going to be talking about trademarks. Um, we have a lot of very accessible data with respect to US patents. And we are opening that up. We're working on opening that up for foreign data that we process, but there's nothing that would prevent creating a workspace, uploading an office action from, say, Europe or another country, and doing a similar analysis.
That clears the questions in the chat.
All right. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, if you're interested in doing some of this work outside of just US patent law, and particularly in trademarks, I definitely recommend tuning in. I want to say it's March 10th that we have our next webinar, and it'll be trademark oriented. And that a lot of the concepts that you'll see there will likely be able to apply outside of the US as well. So, all right, with that, thanks everybody for joining along. Like I mentioned, if you have any questions or want to have any follow-on discussions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.